I remember when the first trailer dropped, it was hated in a similar way to the Ghostbusters reboot. It is joyous to see that every now and again, the people of the world will put their foot down and just say, no, Emoji Movie, you will not get away from this unscathed. And it hasn't. At the time of me writing this, the Emoji Movie is the 6th lowest rated film of all time on IMDb.
This is how the Emoji Movie makes me feel.
From the first line to the last scene, my heart slowly turned into a hole of hatred and despair that slowly pulled my internal organs toward painfully.
This is not a deep message about emotional repression. Sony said this because they know that's exactly what the generation wanted to hear. Challenge whatsoever. Pandering. This is the most sinister experiment Sony has ever made, where they finally realized they could make absolute food trough pig trash as long as it has a popular cultural reference in it, and it would still somehow sell enough to make a profit. Please, I implore you, don't concede it.
There's no such thing as a bad idea. Only bad execution, huh? Well, before we get ahead of ourselves, let's take this one step at a time. 2017's The Emoji Movie is quite a movie indeed. Actually, I think that I'm being a little bit generous there. Maybe 20 tons too generous. It's hard to call The Emoji Movie, well, a movie, even though it's in the title. It's more apt to call it a train wreck. The second that this movie was announced, it was subject to nothing but scorn and ridicule. It became shorthand for Hollywood's lack of creativity and its pandering bottom-of-the-barrel nature. People kept making jokes like, "What's next? The meme movie?" Although, the problem is that many of these jokes came up short because the Emoji Movie managed to be lower than many people's joke responses to stupid movie ideas. You know, for example, that whole meme movie joke. A meme movie had a better chance of working than the Emoji Movie, because there's at least a larger variety of potential to build a plot and characters around. The Emoji Movie stars a bunch of smiley faces. That is it. It stars the thing that people draw when they can't draw. Going through a story that people make when they can't make stories. Making jokes that people make when they can't make jokes. And playing pop songs that people only listen to when they're deaf, and you get my point. I was one of the people who expected this movie to be awful, if not an outright bomb. To the point where I was basically preparing for this review on the announcement of the movie. And I do want to reiterate, just because I expect something is going to be a failure, doesn't mean that I hope it's a failure. It's stupid wanting a movie or any piece of media to be outright bad. I mean, yeah, that might not mean much coming from me, since I can make a review out of a bad movie and get some kind of benefit. I do get ad revenue, hopefully. But trust me, I've got enough movies and projects on the back burner. I don't need Sony to make the worst animated film that I've ever seen on a yearly basis to keep content coming. My life would probably be better with a good Emoji Movie rather than an Emoji Movie review, no matter how good I make this. Besides, how something sounds in concept actually only very rarely translates to how good it is. I should know, I personally work with a concept that many people find stupid. And I watched a lot of things that had great concepts that ended up squandering everything that they've had going for them. It works the other way around too. Concepts that sound just fucking stupid or cliche can end up becoming cultural milestones. How many stories were there about a kid going to a magical school before Harry Potter? A lot, I'll tell you that. Some of the more recent examples in the world of animation were Sausage Party and the Lego Movie. Before either of them came out, they were mocked and ranted on and hated. And both of them are going to be important to the context of the Emoji Movie. Okay, I think I'm going to come down with a complex if I have to keep calling it the Emoji Movie this entire review. Is there something else that I can call it at least half of the time? Yeah, sure, let's go with that. A lot of people said that we should reserve judgment on the Meh Movie because the Lego Movie had a similar concept. And that meant that if people put enough effort into it, then they can manage to surprise us with something brilliant. And you know what? Yeah. If Sony puts some effort behind this piece of shit, there are a few situations in which it could have turned out to be a refreshing, surprising, and dare I say, even a good film.
You serious?
And no, I'm not crazy. My therapist says that I'm not crazy. I am not fucking crazy. Let's just say that there were a few obstacles to the Meh Movie being good. And one of the biggest obstacles was actually that, well, the Lego Movie exists. People who are saying that this movie could have been good and refreshing because the Lego Movie exists need a refresher on how this kind of thing works. If you don't know how this works yet, when one movie manages to become a big hit due to being surprising and fresh and new, the movies and companies that try to rip it off do not end up good. They end up the worst things that Hollywood has ever produced. Take The Avengers. That movie set up a pretty good idea for a superhero cinematic universe. And now every company needs to make a cinematic universe with movies that are so incoherent that they can't stand on their own. In the animation world, take a look at Shrek. At the time, it was a refreshing and surprising movie, and I liked it okay. It's alright. However, it has an astronomically bad influence on the world of animation, specifically animated film, with every single non-Disney film in Chicken Little trying to be Shrek, with its hip and edgy toilet humor, its constant pop culture reference, a comic relief that doesn't really need to be there, its dance party endings, it's trying to act grown up by being childish, etc. Being influential isn't all it's cracked up to be. When a studio sees how successful the Lego Movie is, they don't see that you can make any concept shine if you put a lot of effort into it. They see that you can make stupid concepts work and still be profitable. And hey, they were right. I've yet to check out the Animal Crackers movie, but I might catch the Play-Doh movie. And afterwards, I'll watch the Tetris trilogy. It's just something that I have to check out. After all, the Lego Movie was good. I should trust any company that wants to make as much money as possible with as little effort as possible to create something good. Seriously, the Tetris trilogy is going to be a thing? We have gone too far as a species, please end us now! Everything was against the Meh movie, including the Lego Movie's existence. But the biggest thing that stopped this movie from being successful is that it's one gigantic advertisement. I suppose we should get this one out of the way early. This is something that people usually reserve for the end of a review, but this is what the movie is about. No, I'm gonna stop calling it the Meh movie, it's the ad movie. As you might have expected, the ad movie is one gigantic advertisement, and not just for emojis. The plot is that the emojis, one product, are trying to get to another product, Dropbox, and they need to go through Just Dance and Candy Crush, two more products in order to get there. And of course, YouTube and Twitter saves the day! I wanted to have a running gag in this review where I say something like, list of products that I'm never using again, but YouTube and Dropbox were both necessary in the creation of this video, so I'm not gonna be a hypocrite for the sake of a joke. Product placement does not begin to describe this thing. In context, the ad movie reminds me of an 80s cartoon, where the whole thing exists just to sell a random toy. Everything else is second nature. You know, things like character development, story progression, production values. As long as you tell people about that newest toy, you've served your purpose. And I'm pretty sure that in children's television, this kind of stuff was declared illegal, because if they didn't, companies would spend $50 million to attract kids with bright colors and poop jokes in order to get them to buy whatever crap they shat out. Oh wait, I'm going to be forward. I do object to this movie, like on a moral level. Norm of the North, as bad as it was, at least existed to exist on its own. This movie doesn't care about existing itself. It just wants you, or rather kids, to buy its crap. It does not want anything else. It doesn't want to entertain its audience. It doesn't want to enrich their lives. It doesn't even want to make them laugh. And the movie has a bunch of tricks that you see in typical advertisements. For example, saying that your product will help you get the girl in the end. I don't know, do I really need emojis? I've got Axe body spray for that. No, this video isn't sponsored. Let's take a look at the first lines of the movie.
The world we live in. It's so wondrous, mysterious, even magical. No, not that world. I meant this one. The smartphone. Each system and program and app is its own little planet of perfect technology.
Even they sound like an advertisement. Buy Android today, available at any local Walmart. And here's a pretty insulting trick. Having the main character of your ad be as vague as possible and relate to the most people in the most shallow, lowest common denominator way possible. We'll get to that later. Trust me, I have some choice words to say about Alex. Let's talk about a fact that's more sad or funny. It depends on how much schadenfreude you're in the mood for today. The advertising movie may be the worst ad that I've ever seen in animation. And I have seen the Lucky Charms rap.
Star, horseshoe, clover, and blue moon. Hourglass, rainbow, and also red balloon. Dee-dee-dee-dee, and that's how we make this new hit too.
Just why? Why do you do this to me, Lucky Charms? What have I done to you? Let me tell you this. getting really, really close, because I don't think you're gonna believe this. The Emoji Movie exists to be an advertisement. That is all it exists for. And yet it fails as an advertisement. Not because it fails to sell me its product, it fails as an advertisement because it doesn't understand its own product. Sure, you get some lines like this,
And that's where we come in. The most important invention in the history of communication.
that are doing what they're supposed to, but I can't believe I'm saying this, but there are going to be spoilers in this review. If you care about keeping the end of the Emoji Movie a secret because you want to go and see it yourself, please consider getting an exorcism. So, Gene's main thing is that he has more than one expression. He's more than just one emotion. He's supposed to be a meh his entire life. This is a problem because blah blah blah, we'll get to it later. He goes on this epic quest through Bejeweled Clone that got inexplicably popular, and through Dance Dance Revolution Clone that also got inexplicably popular, to get these emotions removed and become a typical emoji. The problem is that the phone is going to be factory reset, which is something that I'll get to, but if I keep saying that we're gonna get to it, we'll never get to it. If I touch on a problem, assume that I'm going to get to it later in the review. The disaster that is this movie is pretty well intertwined, I'll give it that. Anyway, at the end of the movie, Gene solves the problem by sending a text to Alex's crush that has more expressions than any other emoji. He's like a culmination of every other emoji possible. Let me say this in some more poignant words to the situation. Gene manages to solve the problem of the Emoji Movie, and he's the only one who could solve the problem within the Emoji Movie, because the other emojis, by necessity of being emojis, are too limited to solve the problem of the Emoji Movie. The only reason that Gene could solve the problem of the Emoji Movie is because he was better than the other emoji. The thing that the Emoji Movie is mainly advertising. How do you miss the point this badly? Honestly, I was dumbfounded when I watched the ending for more reasons than the obvious. But yeah, Gene becoming a typical emoji? You know, what the movie fucking exists to advertise is portrayed as the wrong solution. And it gets onto the problem with the product in general. The greatest form of communication, my ass. Emoji are incredibly limited in terms of expression. Sure, you can convey happiness or sadness or poo through emoji, but humans developed language because expression alone was too limited. You stupid, stupid movie! You can get through a conversation with words and no expressions, but you can't get through a conversation with expressions but no words. Also tied into this end, Gene saves the day because he sends a message that Alex didn't want to send. Oh great, the emoji that's not an emoji saves the day. But I have to wonder, what if it was Poop who wanted to save the day, and Poop went to Alex's crush? That'd be great. Yeah, Sony, I want to buy technology that glitches out and doesn't do what you tell it to do. When you make an advertisement, the most important thing is to figure out your target audience. It's advertising 101. I, for the life of me, cannot figure out who this movie was aimed at. The target demographic for emoji and smartphones are teenagers, right? This is further compounded by Alex being a teenager, but it's complicated by Gene being a young adult, apparently. And you know, the random fucking noose. That's kind of a confused little bit. In children's media, generally the main character is the age of the target audience. Riley's 12, Inside Out is primarily aimed at 12-year-olds. That's who the movie is made in mind for. It's general, but it gives you the general idea. However, even ignoring the poop jokes and the stupid juvenile humor, this movie seems to have an active contempt for teenagers, and people who use smartphones in general. You got lines like this.
And like every freshman in high school, his whole life, everything revolves around his phone.
And two kids crash into each other because they're on their phones. Yes, insulting people for using the product that you want to sell. That is a brilliant move.
And attention spans get shorter and shorter, and you're probably not even listening to me right now.
This is ignoring the fact that resorting to emoji is the first thought of companies that desperately want to appeal to millennials while looking down on millennials.
Today I'm going to show you the all-new 2016 Chevy Cruze and ask you what you think. But here's the catch. You can only answer in emojis. What emoji would you use to describe the design?
Just bear with me, alright? Because if it gets 40 miles per gallon, I can buy a lot of tacos.
Oh, okay.
Switch!
You know what, we're long past the point of being advertiser friendly. Might as well go all the way. Companies, if you want to make any profit, stop using emojis. It doesn't relate to millennials. It makes millennials laugh at you because you're being a dumbass. You are being the biggest transparent dumbass possible. It's awkward and stupid. Back to the Emoji movie. The thought that that line would push product, or that every quote I've shown you so far has been in the first 3 minutes of the film. The opening goes on talking about how great emoji are and how much of a smartphone zombie their target audience is. And I hate this movie's guts. Okay, I need to get this out of the way before it bubbles over. Most movies I covered are insulting because they think their audience would buy a stupid plot point or have other failures of storytelling, or they use juvenile humor that nobody would laugh at. This movie is insulting because it is so insensitive that everything it says is either an intentional insult trying to be funny, or an insult through incompetence and not understanding their audience. And I'd believe either at this point. But yeah, I get it, people are the product. This is even ignoring the smaller advertising fails. Oh, Dropbox is virus-free and there's no illegal malware. One of the virus robot things is able to grab Gene while he's inside Dropbox, which I must repeat is virus-free. You know, even though the robot couldn't get in there before. Twitter is in Dropbox for some reason. Why is Twitter in Dropbox? Twitter is not owned by Google. You cannot connect your Twitter to your Dropbox. Just having the Twitter logo in your movie isn't funny, or whatever, and it doesn't make any sense in context. None of the other logos do anything, they're just on top of the big blocks that are portals into the various worlds. And speaking of Dropbox, really? This movie has 7 times where they stop the plot to make a poop joke. And yes, I counted. Is the audience you're aiming at primary users of Dropbox? Why, Google? Why did you pay the Emoji movie for advertising? This is like watching the king of a country be the understudy in an elementary school play in a country that's not even the same continent as his own. But let's get to the worst part of the ad. Alex. This movie gets compared to Inside Out a lot, but that's just because this is the most recent example of this trope. This is actually a fairly common thing that has been done since the beginning of CGI animation. It's pretty typical for this kind of plot to have an outside human connection to the world that they're trying to convey. For example, Toy Story has Andy, Brave Little Toaster has the Master, Monsters Inc. had Boo. I don't think it's a direct ripoff because I don't think that they wanted to go through that much effort. Watching an hour-and-a-half movie would have taken much too long, and they wanted to make this movie have the shortest production time of any animated feature in history. This movie is so bad that I am tempted to make another animated movie in half the time, no matter how terrible it is, just to fart in their faces and take away the only thing that they have to claim. One thing with the Emoji movie is that it often feels like it's just going through a ton of beats, because animated movies are supposed to do that. Every animated movie is about what is your thingy do when you're not looking, because of course it is. Every animated movie that isn't about a princess wanting more is about that. Wreck-It Ralph, Brave Little Toaster, Toy Story, Inside Out, Food Fight, Sausage Party, Secret Life of Pets. And seriously, there are some cartoons from the 1930s and 40s about this. Can we please move on? And they keep Alex in this film just because that's what you're supposed to do, even though this movie would be so much better if they just cut him out entirely. It's strange, but in a movie that has High Five, Jailbreak, and Smiler, Alex actually manages to become my least favorite character in the entire movie, because he's one of the worst written child or teenager characters in history, in all of history since the beginning of time. Not because he's excessively annoying, he's no DW, but for those who have watched the movie, I thank you for your service. You can rest now. Please live a good life devoid of trauma. But to those who have done this, what do you know about Alex? We know that his name is Alex. He's got a smartphone. He's a freshman in high school, so he's probably 14. He's got a crush on Addie, and that's about it. I told you that I counted the poop jokes in this movie. Do you know what else I counted? I counted how many lines Alex has in total. Do you want to take a guess to how many lines that he has in total? Remember, he's the Riley. He's the Andy. He's the person we're supposed to care about. If the main characters fail, Alex's life is going to be miserable and forever ruined. Our main characters are going on this adventure to make this guy happy. With all that said, Alex has less than 20 lines in the whole film. My count was 17, but that largely depends on what you count as a line. He has less than 20 lines. Less than 5 minutes of total screen time. And on top of that, the movie seems largely confused on why Gene wants to become a meh. They give some lip service to it being for Alex, but then it's all about Gene fitting in his own society. But that's not what's involved. that in context of everything else is what's insulting. It's just how dedicated they are to the idea of giving Alex literally no personality. High Five's main quest is that he wants to get back into Alex's favorite box. Of course, we don't see Alex's favorite box because that would give him a personality. Alex's main lines are things like, "No way," and "Oh yeah," and "I gotta get this phone fixed," because actually making dialogue that a person would say and not just existing to move the plot along would give Alex a personality. Alex has Just Dance and Candy Crush on his phone. Are they something that this person would be expected to have? I don't know, because that would give him a personality. In Spotify, they show his school whale song because choosing an actual song means that Alex, and that would have given him an actual personality. High Five finds an email in the garbage. He skips over what Alex actually wrote because that would give Alex a personality. We later see what's written and it's just Rihanna lyrics. Because Alex coming up with something on his own would give him a personality. Am I getting repetitive? Because once you actually catch on to this game, it's obnoxious how brazen they are. At one point, they're all trying to get through a firewall to Dropbox, and they end up just guessing a bunch of random words that are supposedly important to Alex. But it's just a montage, and okay, I'm gonna step aside for a moment. This is probably just a nitpick, but it's something that I have to say. Guessing random words until you get through a password screen is not what hacking is, you fucking idiots! The only person who thinks that hacking is typing random passwords manually is a person who has never seen a computer in their life. Not to be brazen or insensitive, but you think that Sony, of all companies, would know what hacking looks like. You brought a hacker all this way just to read someone's Facebook profile. The password through happens to be Addy, by the way, something uncovered by High Five because the top-notch hacker couldn't look through Alex's trash. And that brings us to Jailbreak. Well, there goes the comment section. I know this doesn't mean much in the dumpster fire movie, considering that all the characters in this movie are horrible, but Jailbreak is awful. Now, it's pointless to say that Jailbreak exists in this movie just to push a political message. Everyone in the world has said that. But let me guess, Sony, we're all sexist for hating this one too. Jailbreak may as well have had political tattooed on her forehead. Now, in the previous review, I talked about fake breaking stereotypes, and Jailbreak was the standout example of, well, everything that can go wrong. Like, everything. The first thing that I noticed is that this feminist character is written out like how an anti-feminist would write a feminist straw man. I just blew up the comment section again. But let me try to explain. Jailbreak is a perfect example of posed law. At a certain point, extreme examples become indistinguishable from satire. When Jailbreak says things like this,
"You know, women are always coming up with stuff that men are taking credit for,"
she sounds exactly like Femme Fatale from the Powerpuff Girls. A character that was designed to be a straw man, or straw woman. She gets angry at the stereotype that princesses whistle for birds, and yet she whistles for her birds. She breaks Jean because she don't need no man. Now, because this is the Sony can't do anything right movie, even people who want a character like this would not be happy. First of all, Jailbreak turns out to be a princess because of course she does. Not only that, but she's a princess who wants more. And she falls in love with Jean. You know, like a girl power character would. Her main claim to fame is hacking, which, as we've established, she has no fucking clue to what she's talking about. Oh yeah, and she's completely useless to the plot. She tries to hack into Dropbox by not hacking, and fails. But High Five has the password. She nearly deprograms the bot at the end, but she gets upstaged by High Five again. Yes, the girl power character gets upstaged by the most annoying male character twice. And the only actual relevance to the overall plot is that she breaks Jean's heart, which I don't know if that was the message that they were going for with this movie, but this movie is full of surprises, so maybe that's what they wanted to do. It is such an avant-garde tour de force that I could accept anything. And yes, I suppose we should also bring up that her main character trait is that she's all outsidery and shit, because when she was growing up, Emoji could only be brides and princesses. Except, you know, Smiler is a female emoji, and Smiler is in charge because she was the first emoji. And also there's Jean's mother, who was a meh, and what the fuck are you talking about? This isn't even, did you remember to proofread? This is, did you even read what you wrote? This is a mistake you wouldn't even make on your first draft. If you want to have a movie with a girl power message, fine, whatever. But this lip service crap is inexcusable and annoying. It pisses off the people you're trying to talk to, and it pisses off the people you're trying to virtue signal to. If you want to talk about the message, Jailbreak's an asshole who breaks Jean's heart. Smiler is an asshole who wants to kill Jean. And Jean's mother considers locking Jean away from the world because of his defect. And those are all the female characters in the entire movie. So no, this movie doesn't have a girl power message going for it. If you want to judge it on that merit, it's horrible. One of the worst examples that I've ever seen. So we got a movie about what does your whatever do when you're not looking, and a movie about a princess who wants more. Both of the only types of movies that animated films are allowed to be anymore. This leads to a cliched hero's journey that amounts to nothing more than a tour through set pieces. We've also got a twist villain, awful animated parents who are awful just because they're the main character's parents, a comic relief who isn't funny and nearly gets the main characters killed, plenty of poop jokes, a main character who is an outcast learning to be himself, all kicked off with a dance party ending. My god. You know, it's tempting to say, it's just a movie. But this movie is so cliched that it makes me have a hard time enjoy other movies. A lot of animated movies this day essentially have the plot of going from this wacky animated set piece to that wacky animated set piece. Just think of the 3 movies that this one is directly accused of ripping off. Inside Out, Wreck-It Ralph, the Lego Movie. When you see a template that all of them share, just so laid out and barren in the Emoji Movie, it makes each of these movies just that much harder to watch and enjoy on their own merits. It doesn't change what came before, but it can change your perspective of it, you know? It's a trope called Seinfeld is unfunny. And it's the reason that I'm not talking about the plot. If I describe the plot of this movie, I'd be describing every animated movie ever made. The hero's journey, which this movie uses, has been done over and over again, and it's been a plot since near the beginning of time. I understand that. Hell, I've even used the hero's journey myself. But what I'm tired about is the set pieces plot. A plot in which you can, with just a little bit of rewriting, cut out everything but the final area. Like, even in some of the earlier examples, the story of The Hobbit, the book, not the movies, would make complete sense if you cut out everything in Cloakwood. Why does this work in The Hobbit and the examples that work? It's because these stories are only good by making the environments the characters go through interesting. And while the Emoji Movie goes through Dropbox, Just Dance, and Candy Crush, even ignoring the obvious that all this is an ad. The problem is that I can see these things on my own. I can just go out of my way and play Candy Crush, and I don't need the Emoji Movie to see this. The worlds in Wreck-It Ralph and in Inside Out and Lego Movie, you could only see them in their respective movies. They were unique to those movies, even if they were a direct reference. They managed to make them their own. They can get away with going through all of these detours because the environments are unique and creative, and they do affect the characters emotionally. I'm sure that whoever created Candy Crush was creative enough to figure out that you can make a lot of money that you put microtransactions in Bejeweled, but the people that made this movie were not creative just by taking the damn thing verbatim. You know, especially because Wreck-It Ralph already did the whole Candy World thing. If you cut out the Candy Crush and the Just Dance segments in the movie entirely, what would change? Just have the bots get high five and knock off Jailbreak's hat, and the rest of the plot would be exactly the same. Because none of these scenes really affect the main characters emotionally or physically. Especially because they could literally avoid these situations within context and within the plot. Every one of these programs is laid out in a grid that they could easily walk around, but they don't do that because of contractual obligations. Let's talk about Gene.
I gotta be man. I gotta be man.
Okay, now we get to actually talking about the main character, Gene. And this is another area where the movie really comes apart, because this movie really comes apart everywhere. Let's start with something positive. Gene is the most likable character in the movie. You know, by default. He's the outcast. He's statistically the most relatable, marketable character archetype that Sony could use. The person in charge brought down to the bottom wasn't as likable. But seriously, I'm gonna go for round 2 on this. Lego Movie, Atlantis, Hunchback, Megamind, How to Train Your Dragon, Kung Fu Panda, Shrek, The Lorax, Wreck-It Ralph, Treasure Planet. You see what I mean? Once again, I get that the guy on the bottom of society is one of the most common character types for this very reason. That it's relatable, and that it's common in the real world. But the Emoji Movie has no twists on this. No, nothing. It's just giving me a 1,000-year-old piece of nothing, and it's expecting me to enjoy it or relate to it on some level. But let's talk about that. Let's talk about relating to Gene. Let me give this movie the benefit of the doubt, because if I didn't, I'm sure that this movie would try to mug me for it. Let's assume that I like Gene and that I wanted him to succeed, that I related to this guy. This is what the movie is about. It's about expressing yourself. That is the tagline. Gene expresses himself at his job and nearly gets everyone killed because expressing yourself is bad. At the end of the movie, Gene saves the day through glitching the phone. The last thing that you want in the real world is your smartphone or computer or any piece of technology to do whatever the fuck it wants. expressing yourself in that context is bad. Gene doesn't want to take responsibility for this, and he wants to just stay out of the way of everyone else. Which is something that he could have done, if he took up his parents' offer, or if he was satisfied with staying out of the cube. But okay, let's assume that I could like that. Let's assume that this is the likable guy that the movie wants him to be. He goes on a quest. Smiler wants to kill him because Smiler is secretly evil, big surprise. So, if Gene fails this quest, he dies. And if Gene succeeds this quest, he gets his emotions drained and basically becomes lobotomized. Yay! So, if I like this character, if I like Gene, him losing is bad because he dies. Him winning is bad because he gets his emotions removed. And, becomes what this movie is trying to sell me. I'm not missing anything. The opening of the movie shows that Gene is enjoying his life around him. He's very social, he laughs at any joke that comes his way, he's excited about life, and he's filled with wonder and awe. He wants to get rid of all of that. And the movie wants me to want him to succeed in his quest, even though the movie is about expressing yourself. This feels like a game of round robin between people who don't speak the same languages. The only way that this logic works if you're supposed to know that Gene is misguided in his quest to become lobotomized. And if you could catch on to that, I'd like to congratulate you on your 3rd birthday. Not only do I not like Gene's arc, but there is no way that I could ever like Gene's arc because it is that badly written. Not one part of it is done correctly. I repeat, his mistake nearly gets everyone killed in a factory reset, and you're supposed to like him for that. But he screws up because the outcast is supposed to screw up. It is what sparks the journey. It's the formula. The Emoji Movie. These are guidelines to making an animated movie, not the rules. You don't need to follow the hero's journey to the letter. You can actually do something different for once in your screen time. Alright, I think that's the main characters. Who else am I forgetting?
Come on, man, it's high five. You know me, I'm a favorite.
Alex hasn't picked you in weeks, and if he stops picking you, you're no longer a favorite.
It's got to be some sort of mistake. I mean, look at me. I'm an attractive hand giving a high five.
Oh, I knew that I was blotting something out of my memory. High five is a waste of processing power. The end. He's not the worst character in the movie, just the most annoying. And he puts the forced in forced comic relief. And by forced, I don't just mean that his comedy is forced, although, yeah, it is. I mean that he logically shouldn't even be in the movie. His first job in the story is to show Gene the Loser Lounge, something that he apparently knows quite well. Now, the Loser Lounge is a place for emoji who are never used. Eggplant is there because the Emoji Movie doesn't know anything about emojis. Anyway, he's apparently a regular in the lounge, where emoji are never used, even though, until today, he's been one of Alex's favorite emoji, and he just recently got shit-canned that morning. Guys, I know that the Emoji Movie is something that you want to rub your hands off as quickly as possible, but at the very least, could you do some minor proofreading to make sure that at least some aspects of the story line up, that the movie is relatively coherent? The next thing High Five does is mention Jailbreak, right after he mentions a princess who got out of the phone. Now, Gene could have easily heard this rumor himself without High Five's influence, and of course he doesn't help Gene escape because you could literally walk through the wall and just walk out. You could literally just walk out. Then High Five takes Gene to a piracy app because this movie that's an advertisement for smartphones don't know how smartphones work. Inside this piracy app, there are trolls and spam email, and it's clear the people who wrote this don't know what the internet is and decided to just put everything bad they've heard about the internet in one place. Anyway, High Five eats a lot of candy in Candy Crush, nearly gets them killed in Just Dance, and then creates a detour in the plot when he gets deleted. He brings back an email that Miss Hacker should have been able to get, and he destroys the final Megabot, something else that Miss Hacker should have done. His existence is either pointless, breaks the plot, or breaks other characters' arcs. He is nothing but a drag on the movie, almost as much as Gene's parents. Oh god, Gene's parents, how did I forget them? Gene's parents are the worst part of the movie, because everything is the worst part of the movie. I know that I'm repeating myself a little bit on this one, but the first problem here is that Gene's parents have more screen time than Alex, even though their story is literally pointless. Like, there is nothing of substance here. You can cut everything of them out and just have them arrive at the end to rescue Gene from Smiler's contraption. However, they do get the reward for creating my least favorite scenes of the movie. Gene's parents are meh emoticons. Yeah, emoji can apparently reproduce, and they can age to the point of being 10 years old, even though they only exist on specifically Alex's smartphone. And I doubt that it's a model that would be able to sustain multiple generations. Look, let's just stay focused. There's a million little cuts that make this movie fall apart in a variety of ways. Everything that the meh parents say is, well, in a meh expression. Here's the problem. They're supposed to have a heartwarming story about getting over a rough patch in their marriage. If a character doesn't give a shit about their own arc, how the hell is the audience supposed to care? The point of media is to feel experiences through another's eyes, to go through other people's emotions, to feel what they feel. You can't make me feel, oh, this is so heartwarming, and oh, I'm so disinterested in everything at the exact same time. Yeah, I get the idea that this was supposed to be a bit of a joke, but it just drags on for so long. They get like a quarter of the movie. The most hated performances in the world are from actors who clearly don't give a shit. But that's Gene's parents' entire character. And of course, Sony doesn't seem to realize this because they went out of their way to make the movie star a meh. And Mega Meh Emoticon, the star of the first trailer. Why? I don't know. Maybe Sony is making these awful trailers on purpose. Or maybe they're really just that tone deaf to general audiences. Why else would they be taking on the story of the Nativity next? Back to Gene's parents. I need to stay focused. With them, it gets worse. Every joke, and I mean every fucking joke with these two is, I feel this emotion, but I don't really because I'm a meh. It was unfunny the first time, maybe it'll be hilarious by the 50th. Or maybe it'll just go on to further show how limited the whole concept of emoji are. How they're unable to showcase complex or dual emotions unless they defy the very concept of being an emoji. Then again, that's how every joke in the movie goes. The poop emoji only tells poop jokes. The devil only talks about how bad he is. The meh only talks about being meh. Smiler's only jokes are about maintaining her smile. At one point, she's drinking Listerine just to take a spit take. It's all so telegraphed. Quick tip, if your audience guesses the punchline before you say it, the joke will not work. You lose. And some of the jokes aren't really jokes, they're just more product placement.
Wow, what a visual treat. And I don't even need a remote.
You know, unless you're watching YouTube TV. Guess Google didn't shell out the big advertising bucks for that one. They spent it all on Dropbox being the final destination in a movie aimed at 3-year-olds. Is there anything in the movie I didn't talk about? Anything worth talking about? Alright, we'll talk about the fucking Walmart logo. Even though there's no point to talking about her. I think that she's supposed to be a surprise villain. It's a surprise to everyone at the end that she is a villain. She's only revealed at the end when she tries to kill Gene, which basically reveals that she's a villain to everyone and no one would take her seriously afterwards, even if her plan succeeded. Because if this movie wants to use a broken cliche, they're gonna go all the way.
Smiler, I think you might be making too much stink out of all this.
Oh, really? How about you're next?
Speaking of broken cliches, this episode is a fake-out death. And one of the worst examples ever. Gene saves the emojis by proving how limited emojis are, and everyone comes back from a factory reset. You know, even though that's not how factory resets work. You can't just stop a factory reset and get the programs back that were already deleted. And I'm pretty sure that interrupting something like that could have a chance to actually damage the phone. I've already gone on specifically about this cliche in my last review, but I do want to reiterate there is no quicker, more thorough way to showcase how little you think of the audience than to think that they can't handle the story that you want to tell them. And that's what this is. Every time. Every time. It's an admission that you think the audience watching is too immature for the story that you're telling them. And considering that you're trying to market to 14-year-olds, I think that's really sad. Or, you know, it would be if I thought that this movie was capable of capturing the basic human feeling of sadness. I guess I should talk about the animation, since people say that that's one of the movie's saving graces. I disagree. The animation isn't bad per se. It looks good and it's bright and colorful, you know, like an ad should be. But there's only so much credit I can give it. And when you're the best thing of the Emoji movie, that's not a compliment. I mean, the movie stars smiley faces with stick arms. The area on the wallpaper of the phone is made by these giant cubes, which is another thing that's not that complicated to draw, and it's even easier for a computer to render, especially when it's just a white texture with someone else's logo on the top. Most of the visual direction was done before this movie was even conceived, as it's just trying to represent the brands that it's selling. They want the Candy Crush section to look like Candy Crush. They want the Just Dance section to look like Just Dance. And I noticed a lot of shortcuts. Take a look at these wide shots here. First of all, many of the clouds are duplicated, and one of these models even comes back later, when Jailbreak is looking through holograms. But you'll also notice that many of the icons on top of the buildings are repeated. There's at least 2 volcanoes and at least 4 sunflowers, and they're all on the left-hand side of the screen. It's like they gave up halfway populating the shot with clones. Many of the scenes that are not directly inspired by a product are just vague matrix areas that largely end up being indistinguishable from each other. While I wouldn't call the animation bad, especially when compared to other movies like Norman of the North, it's barely passable. it looks like they shined up a straight-to-DVD movie, which this probably should have been. Look, this review has just been an hour of me saying this in a more complicated way. The Emoji Movie is a waste. A waste of money, a waste of time, and I'm sure even a waste of talent. The only good thing that I can say about this movie is that it has a nice soundtrack. Yes, I was so disinterested in the movie that I actually started listening to the soundtrack, and you know what? It's a good soundtrack. The animators and the voice actors and the writers and the directors and the marketers and everyone else should have been working on the soundtrack instead of what they actually did. Their efforts and their expertise would have been used more wisely. I have to be honest. I loathe this movie. And yeah, I loathe a lot of things, but this movie takes it to the next level. It is a direct middle finger to the viewing public. A lot of people say this movie reminds them of a film like Inside Out. And you know what? This reminds me a lot of another movie too, but not one you'd expect. This reminds me a lot of the Seltzer and Friedberg parody movies, like Epic Movie or Meet the Spartans. It's a movie that just strings together scenes from other famous movies with toilet humor and no understanding of what it actually references. At times, it feels like the Emoji Movie wants to be a parody of animated films. And when you get down to it, the Emoji Movie is not a movie. It's a Simpson joke about how bad and lowbrow and lazy that mainstream films have gotten over the past decade. And you know what? As a Simpsons joke, it might have actually worked. I'm not crazy. I promise that I am not crazy. I know I just got done watching through the fucking Emoji Movie, but there is a way this could have worked, and I mentioned this back at the beginning. If this was something like Sausage Party, if it was a parody of animated films, this movie could have been hilarious. It wouldn't have been the most original thing out there, but all of the beats are there. If the movie went out of the way to make fun of how stupid and ridiculous its concepts are, it probably would have gotten a lot of laughs. It is what Sausage Party did. Parody and satire movies are supposed to pick flat-out stupid premises, taking the idea of a genre and making it as extreme as possible. What a better way to make fun of the endless movies that personify random objects than to make it one of the stupidest things in history, glorified emoticons. When you talk about the Emoji Movie, it sounds like it should be funny in a so bad it's ridiculous kind of way. Our main characters are on a quest to Dropbox, with the help of a comic relief that shouldn't even be there, and a princess who is so political she falls on her face. I already said that she's written like satire. A lot of people who went in to watch the movie in the theaters expected it to be funny in a ridiculous kind of way. But in the end, it comes across like the movie Airplane or Young Frankenstein without any jokes. Half of the time, it does feel like they want to tell these jokes, but they couldn't, well, because it wouldn't be advertiser-friendly. I know that the advertiser-friendly meme is kind of played out, but you're watching a review of the Emoji Movie, and you should be used to dead memes by now. What killed any chance of this movie being good is how many product placements that it had. They had to show the emoji in the most glorious way possible. That Alex kid, he doesn't need any screen time. We need to show the emoji. You can't tell any jokes, that would make our product look bad. What, you want to move the plot forward? We paid for that ad for Candy Crush. We expect you to show everyone how it's played. You want to put some insightful commentary to your film? Well, the chart says the audience we're advertising to is too stupid to be interested in something like that. What we have in the end is, well, the end. I've learned not to say that this is the worst thing ever, but the Emoji Movie, let's be honest, is the end of the line. There is never going to be a movie that is a more soulless husk than the Emoji Movie. It is the rock bottom of cinema's creativity, the bedrock. And I get that a lot of people are saying, oh, you shouldn't be so harsh on this, or it's not really that bad. And I'm going to have to disagree. This movie deserves all of the hatred and all of the backlash that it gets. Why? I'm going to level with you, and I think we have the same desire here. Both you and I believe that we never want any studio to pull a stunt like this again. Every time that you give a pass to the Emoji Movie as not being that bad, you give license for the Play-Doh movie, the Tetris trilogy, the Meme Movie. It's just going to encourage more and more companies to dig the pit lower. You know, with how paranoid Sony is about Rotten Tomatoes, harsh internet words apparently are doing something, and internet trolls are apparently the only ones who aren't allowed to express themselves, right, Sony? Normally, I don't like to review lowest common denominator mockbusters that aren't worth my time, but the Emoji Movie deserves to live in infamy. I want Sony to remember this for a long time to come. I want them to hold it up as a warning to their future creative decisions, to let it be a guiding light in the correct direction. I never want Sony or any other studio to do something like this ever again, and I am sure that most people are on the same page. And you don't get that by giving the Emoji Movie a pass as being not that bad. It is a tedious, slow, insulting, cliched, awful, insidious piece of shit that should have never been made. And I have absolutely no reservations and no hesitation in saying that it is the worst animated film that I have ever seen. And I would give this a medal as the worst or most obnoxious whatever, but this movie deserves nothing. It gets nothing. The end. The review is over. I blew out my throat. The end.